I remember exactly where I was when I almost stopped investing. Parking garage, third floor, sitting in my car after work because I didn't want to go upstairs yet. I was 29. I'd been putting money into my investment account for about 4 years, and I pulled up the balance on my phone and just stared at it. $41,000! Which felt like nothing. Like I'd been grinding for years and had absolutely nothing to show for it. I remember thinking, I'm going to be doing this until I'm dead. What's the point? I'm Jordan, and I want to tell you about something I figured out later that would have saved me about 3 years of feeling like a failure. Because that $41,000, I was thinking about it completely wrong. Most people think building wealth is linear. You save $1, you're $1 closer. You save 100,000, you're 1/10 of the way to $1 million. That's not how it works. And once you see the actual curve, that 40,000 stops feeling like a drop in the bucket. It starts feeling like the thing that determines everything.
Chapter 1: The Linear Lie.
I don't know who started the idea that wealth building is a straight line. Probably the same people who think you should pay off your smallest debt first, regardless of the interest rate. It feels good. It's just not math. Here's what actually happens. Let's say you invest $100 a week. Nothing heroic. At 8% returns, which is actually conservative compared to the long-term market average, it takes about 12 years to hit your first 100,000. 12 years sounds like forever, but here's the part no one told me. The next 100,000? 6 years, not 12. 6, because your money started working while you weren't paying attention. That first 100,000, most of it came from you. About 62,000 of your own contributions, 38,000 in growth. Decent, fine. By the time you hit 200,000, you've personally contributed about 94,000. The other 106,000 is pure growth. Your money is out-earning you now. I sat with that for a while when I first ran the numbers, because most financial content I'd consumed never framed it that way. They just said compound interest is powerful and moved on. But powerful in what actual time frame? Chapter 2: The Milestone Nobody Talks About. There's a specific number that changed how I think about this whole thing. It's not $1 million, it's 100,000. Because once you cross that line, the math flips. Not gradually, not eventually, it flips right there. From 0 to 100,000, you're doing most of the work. You're pushing the boulder up the hill. It's slow, it's boring. You check your account too often and get disappointed because a good year is like $8,000 in growth. That's nice, but it's not quitting your job money. But once that boulder reaches the top, it starts rolling downhill. And at a certain point, somewhere around the 100,000 mark, the momentum takes over. You're not pushing anymore, you're just guiding it. I've seen this happen with people I know, not theoretical people, real ones. Chapter 3: The Person Who Showed Me I Was Wrong. Let me tell you about someone I used to work with. Her name is Kara. Same company, different department. We weren't close, but we shared a wall for about 4 years. I remember her leaving every day at exactly 5:02. Never earlier, never later. At the time, I thought, she's not serious about her career, which says a lot more about me than about her. One day, we're at the coffee cart, and I ask her what she's working toward. She says something I didn't understand then. I just need the first 100. I thought she meant $100,000. She did, but she meant something else too. She said, after that, the money does more than I do. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. She left the company 3 years later. She was 39. Turns out she'd been investing $200 a week for about 14 years. Not because she had a high income, she didn't. She just never upgraded her lifestyle when she got raises. Every promotion, every cost of living adjustment, every bonus, straight into the account. By the time she left, her portfolio was generating about $3,000 a month. Her expenses were around $2,400. She didn't quit to do nothing. She quit to do something else. Something she chose. I keep coming back to that conversation because she figured out the one thing most people don't.
Chapter 4. The part of the curve no one shows you.
Here's the actual math that changed my behavior. The first 100,000 takes the longest. Not because the math is different, because you're building the engine. You're not just saving money, you're accumulating capital that will eventually generate its own capital. After that, the curve bends. From 100 to 200, about 6 years if you keep contributing the same amount. From 200 to 300, about 4.5. From 300 to 400, under 4 years. By the time you're closing in on $1 million, your money is generating more each year than you're contributing. That's not a metaphor, that's a spreadsheet. At $800,000, an average year of growth is $64,000. That's more than most people save in 3 years of aggressive effort. But, and this is the part I want to be honest about, none of that works if you can't get through the first phase, the boring phase, the phase where you're putting money in and it feels like nothing is happening. I almost didn't make it through that phase.
Chapter 5. The psychological trap that almost got me.
I was 29. I had been investing for about 4 years. I had maybe $41,000. And I remember looking at a compound interest calculator and thinking, this is stupid. I'll be 50 before this matters. I didn't say that out loud because I knew how it sounded, but I felt it. And here's what I didn't understand then. The people who succeed at this aren't the ones who are more disciplined than me. They're not smarter. They're not better at picking stocks. They just didn't stop in year 4.
That's it. They kept making the contributions when it felt pointless, when their friends were buying nicer cars, when the market was down and their balance went backward. They just didn't stop. I have a friend, actual friend, not a friend, who started investing the same year I did, same income roughly. He stopped twice. Once at year 3 because he wanted a motorcycle, once at year 7 because he got spooked by a downturn and moved everything to cash.
His portfolio today is about 1/3 of mine. Not because he's bad with money, because he interrupted the curve. And every time you interrupt it, you reset the clock on that snowball effect. Chapter 6. The number that changed my mind. I want to tell you about a specific moment, because I think it's the reason I'm making this video. I was maybe 30. I'd been feeling discouraged for months, and I came across this interview with someone. I can't even remember who, but they said something like, the first 100,000 is $100,000, but it's also proof. It's proof you can do it, and that proof is worth more than the money. I rolled my eyes at first. That's the kind of thing people say in motivational speeches. But I kept thinking about it, and I realized they were right for a reason that's not sentimental at all. If you can get to 100,000, you've demonstrated that you can delay gratification, stick to a plan through boredom and market noise, and prioritize long-term wealth over short-term wants. Those 3 things, not the money itself, are what get you to $1 million. The person who has those habits and $100,000 is not 1/10 of the way to $1 million. They're much closer, because the habits are the hard part. The money just follows. I want to stop here and ask you something directly. Right now, not 10 years from now, there are 2 versions of you that exist. Version 1 keeps going through the boring years. They hit 100,000, maybe 12 years in. And after that, the money starts accelerating on its own. They don't have to become a different person. They just had to not stop. Version 2 stops at year 4 or year 7, or they never start because the number feels too big. They tell themselves they'll start when they make more money, or when the market feels safer, or when they figure out the perfect strategy. Those 2 versions are not separated by intelligence, or income, or luck. They're separated by one decision. The decision to keep going when it felt pointless. Which version are you building right now? Drop a number in the comments. Not how much you have. How many years you've been investing consistently without stopping. Just a number. I read every single one.
Chapter 7. What most people get wrong about time.
Here's something I've changed my mind about. I used to think the most important factor in building wealth was how much you saved. Like, the bigger the number each month, the faster you'd get there. That's true, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is when you start. Not because of some motivational, the best time was yesterday quote, because of the actual math. Someone who starts investing $100 a week at 25 and stops at 35 has put in $52,000 of their own money. If they never contribute another dollar, by 65, that portfolio is worth about $800,000 at 8% returns. Someone who starts at 35 and invests the same $100 a week all the way to 65 has put in $156,000 of their own money, 3 times as much.
Their final number? About 700,000. The person who contributed less money but started earlier ends up with more, significantly more. That's not fair, but it's math. I'm not saying this to make anyone feel bad about starting late. I started later than I should have. I'm saying it because the single most useful thing you can do is not find more money to invest. It's to start today. Not next month, not when you figure out the perfect fund, today.
Chapter 8. What actually happens after 100,000?
I want to describe something for you. The first time your investment account generates more in a year than you contributed, that's a weird feeling. For me, it happened somewhere around 150,000, I think. I did the math at the end of the year and realized my contributions were about 11,000. My investment returns were about 13. I'd never thought about what that would feel like. I just assumed I'd feel smart or relieved. I felt neither. I felt confused, like I hadn't earned it, which is stupid because the money didn't appear from nowhere. I'd been putting it in for years, but the returns felt like a gift, not a result. That's the part no one prepares you for, the psychological shift. Because once your money is making more money than you are, your relationship with work changes. Not dramatically, not overnight, but you start noticing things, like how much of your job is just tolerating things you don't want to do. And you realize you don't have to tolerate them forever, just until the gap closes. That's not quitting. That's just having a number in mind that's actually real. Here's the truth I've landed on after all of this. The first 100,000 is not 1/10 of the way to $1 million. It's the entire foundation. Everything after that is just the house being built on top of it. Most people never get to 100,000, not because they can't, because they stop in year 3 or 4 when it still feels pointless. They look at their balance and think, this is never gonna work. And they're right, but only because they stopped. If you're at 10,000, you're not 1% of the way. You're on the curve. The curve is what matters, not the percentage. If you're at 50,000, you're closer than you think. Not because the math is magic, because you've already done the hard part. You've proven you can do it. The rest is just waiting. And waiting, boring, tedious, unglamorous waiting, is the actual skill. If this kind of honest math is useful to you, subscribe. No hype here, just the actual numbers. Next video, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's the question everyone argues about. Invest or pay off debt? Which one actually makes you wealthier? I've got an answer. I think you'll want to hear it. I'm Jordan. Go look at your investment account, even if it's small, especially if it's small. That's not a drop in the bucket, that's the bucket. I'll see you soon.